How's it going, folks? I'm Graham Jason Matthews, and welcome back to WrestleRant, where I give my in-depth analysis of all the pay-per-views that I watch on the WWE Network. And of course, the entire month of September is being devoted to Unforgiven and my thoughts in every single installment, with today's show being about Unforgiven 2001. So this event occurred smack dab in the middle of the entire invasion angle, with the WWF guys going against the WCW and ECW guys. So every single match on this show featured the WWF competitors going up against people from ECW and WCW. So just keep that in mind throughout the entirety of this review. So kicking off the show, a fatal four-way elimination match of the WWF Tag Team titles. The Dudley Boyz defending the gold against the teams of Big Show and Spike Dudley, Lance Storm and the Hurricane, and the Hardy Boyz representing the WWF. Lance Storm and Hurricane were from ECW and WCW respectively. Big Show and Spike were from WWF, and Dudley Boyz from ECW. A good match and nothing too special. I don't think the elimination stipulation was really all that necessary. I mean, when you have a stipulation like this, you have four teams, you would think it would get more time than just 14 minutes. They kind of rushed a lot of the eliminations of Big Show and Spike Dudley and Lance Storm and Hurricane, two very random duos, by the way, that I had never heard of. And I guess that's what you can kind of expect when you have the alliance and people just a lot of bodies, just not a lot of star power. Essentially what the alliance was all about. A lot of great matches, but the entire invasion angle was just featured a lot of people. Just a lot of those people just didn't mean anything. So you just had a lot of people that were floundering and just lost in the shuffle, which was the essentially epitome of what this match was. You had a lot of people that weren't doing anything. They just threw them into the tag team title scene. The only two real tag teams in this match were, of course, the Dudley Boyz and the Hardy Boyz, and logically that's what the match came down to. The Dudley Boyz against the Hardy Boyz in the end, and ultimately it was the Dudley Boyz coming out on top, still the WWF Tag Team Champions, still the WWF Tag Team Champions, So a good little back and forth between those two teams. They had been facing off time and time again by this period in time. This was late 2001. The two teams have been feuding on and off for the last 2 years by this point, so it really wasn't anything new to see the Hardy Boyz and Dudley Boyz against each other, but who can complain when they always produce quality matches? So a decent match kick off the show, nothing too noteworthy, but it was fun to see the Dudley Boyz and the Hardy Boyz mix it up towards the end there. So after that, we had Perry Saturn against Raven, and this match did have some meaning to it. Raven had destroyed Moppy, Perry Saturn's prized possession, about a month earlier than this, with Terry Runnels in his corner. The match wasn't terrible, I just didn't care about it, so at least they had a storyline to it, but it was just, who gave a fuck, you know what I mean? It was Perry Saturn and Raven, so the match was as mediocre as could be. Perry Saturn in the end going over, getting his revenge on Raven, and destroying Moppy and getting his revenge on Terry Runnels as well. So that was that. Perry Saturn going over, not really much more I could say about it other than that. Up next, the Intercontinental Championship, Christian taking on Edge. This was the one match in the entire show that did not feature brand against brand. It was Christian and Edge, both from WWF, but it was the one storyline in the entire invasion angle that was not about brand and brand. It was about two guys from within the WWF. Christian had just turned on Edge, broke up their legendary story tag team to chase Edge's Intercontinental Championship months after Edge had won the 2001 King of the Ring. So that was when the whole split occurred. Talked about that in the SummerSlam 01 review a couple weeks ago. So this was a good match, not as great as I thought it was going to be. I'm holding out hope that their ladder match in No Mercy was a lot better. So I'm kind of figuring that's why this match wasn't as good as it could be, because they were kind of holding back and waiting for to deliver, to kind of go all out in their ladder match the following month at No Mercy. But it was good for what it was, though. Christian, in the end, cheating to pick up the Intercontinental Championship, which was the right move. Ultimately, Edge would win that title back in No Mercy anyway. But to keep the feud alive and to give Christian some heat, it was imperative that he win the gold here and become the new IC champion, thus putting Edge in chase mode. So not as epic of a match as I was expecting, but still a good outing from Christian and Edge. After that, we had the Brothers of Destruction taking on Chronic from WCW at Bryan Adams and Brian Clark for the WCW Tag Team titles. An atrocious match. I knew nothing about Chronic, but I'm so glad I didn't before watching this match, because this match was just terrible. Bryan Adams and Brian Clark were not great athletes at all. They had zero chemistry with The Undertaker and Kane. I love the Brothers of Destruction, but the whole storyline with Steven Richards just screamed filler. Stevie Richards against Undertaker and Kane just made no sense. They got essentially squashed in this match and were never a threat after this point. I think they were gone shortly thereafter. Stevie Richards went on to flounder in WWE for the next 7 years. Just a completely pointless program that had a terrible payoff that no one gave two shits about is really all that I could say about it. Just a terrible, terrible match. And in the end, thankfully, it was the Brothers of Destruction going over and retaining their WCW tag team titles. And unfortunately, the match got as long as 10 minutes when it should have been essentially won, with it just being a squash match with the Brothers of Destruction just getting over and that be it. But unfortunately, had to drag on for the next 10 minutes. But just a terrible, terrible match. And kind of a complete 180 from that. We had a great matchup next between Rob Van Dam and Chris Jericho, a hardcore match for the hardcore title. These guys work so damn well together. And of course, this was following the storyline that Stephanie McMahon had it out against Chris Jericho, and she had Rhino go up against him at SummerSlam. He fell short of beating Y2J, so she enlisted the help of Rob Van Dam instead, who was the then hardcore champion. She was not, she became present towards the end of the match. She kind of got involved a little bit, but for the most part, it was just straight up RVD and Jericho just going at it. Two guys that you would think would flourish in a ladder match environment, but still, even without the ladders, just straight up hardcore match, they made the most of the extreme environment. Had a lot of great chemistry together, and unsurprisingly put together a very quality match that I thoroughly enjoyed. So in the end, it was RVD coming out victorious with, again, like I said before, with some help from Stephanie McMahon, who gave Jericho his comeuppance in a sense, but the feud was far from over between those two in the months to come and during the Invasion angle. But it was nice to see RVD kind of get a leg up in the feud, and he was easily the most popular guy in the entire Invasion storyline. You had Booker T as the guy that was going after the WCW Championship, and he got taken out time and time again and made to look inferior to the WWF guys. But RVD, despite losing some matches here and there, this not being one of them, was still extremely over with the audience. So it was great to see him win a match here and kind of get one over on Y2J. So after that, a triple threat, not a triple threat match, but rather a handicap match. It felt like a triple threat, but it was a handicap match for the WCW title. The Rock defending against Booker T and Shane McMahon. Now, I thoroughly enjoyed the match between Booker and Shane, or rather Booker and Rock from SummerSlam the month prior. I thought it was pretty good, nothing too great, and I thought Angle and Austin was better, but it was still a pretty good match. And you throw Shane in there, and I've said this time and time again, Shane is awesome. Shane, when you put him up against anyone in the ring, he's just great. He has quality opponents. He has quality matches every single time he's in there. And The Rock was no different. The match was not as clear-cut as the Rock and Booker match was. Just a lot of antics, a lot of crazy antics from both guys, from both Booker T and Shane McMahon, just trying to get one over on The Rock and bring the WCW title back to the Alliance. And of course, they were ultimately unsuccessful in doing so. But the match was entertaining. I'm not a huge fan of handicap matches, and it was no super special handicap match that really is worth going out of your way to see. But for what it was, for the time they were given, for the 15 minutes that they were allotted for this match, I thought it was entertaining. Not great, but I thought it was entertaining, and that's mostly what Shane McMahon's matches were. Every single opponent that he would work with, like I said earlier, was quality, and he would have good matches with all of them, with Rock being no exception. So an entertaining handicap match in these guys. And despite being, having all odds stacked against him, it was The Rock who walked away with that WCW title still intact. So after that, for the United States Championship, the WCW version, of course, Rhino defending or contending for the gold against Tajiri, in kind of a throwaway match. Didn't really give two shits about it. Tori Wilson was in the corner of Tajiri here. They were representing the WWF, with Rhino representing ECW. A fine match, nothing too terrible. It kind of served its purpose to bring the crowd down after the WCW title match and before revving them up before the main event between Angle and Stone Cold Steve Austin. A fine match, Rhino in the end going over with a sickening spear to take home that WCW United States Championship. But other than that, though, nothing too noteworthy. And then we get to the main event for the WWF Championship. Kurt Angle contending for the gold against Stone Cold Steve Austin. And, there's always that debate as to whether Angle should have taken home the title at SummerSlam. An argument can be made as to whether he should have, as to whether he, should have taken home that title, considering how hot he was at that period in time. I think it was fine. They waited the month, like Goldberg, who I'll talk about in my review of Unforgiven 2003, who they definitely should have given the belt to at SummerSlam the month prior. I can definitely see it in this case because, of course, 9/11 was just a freak occurrence, and they were, that just happened, and Angle was an American hero. They were pushing him before that anyway, but the timing of it all, it just really worked out. Unforgiven was in his hometown anyway, so it made for a huge moment. They had his family in the crowd. It was extremely entertaining, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great match, even better than their SummerSlam match. Stone Cold Steve Austin had been built up to be this unstoppable, unbeatable champion, having held that belt since WrestleMania. So everything about this I thought was great. Angle and Austin had amazing chemistry together, kind of 1 year removed from their backstage confrontation Unforgiven 2000. So they didn't really note that, obviously. I just kind of picked that up after watching both pay-per-views back-to-back. But an excellent match, just with all the circumstances and where they were and what had just happened, and Angle being the conquering babyface and Stone Cold Steve Austin's build-up. It was fantastic. You couldn't really have asked for a better moment with Angle securing the win, taking home the championship, and celebrating with the rest of the roster and his family. Made for an amazing visual to close out the show. And Jim Ross called it like it was the fucking Super Bowl. It was a huge call, and it was an amazing moment, so I thoroughly enjoyed it. My only gripe with it was that it ended like 2 weeks later. They really cut short the title reign of Angle. He joined the Alliance a couple weeks after that. Like, the whole aftermath of this was complete shit. But if you just watch this match for what it is, you watch the video package, you watch the build-up, you'll know how special it was, and it had a great payoff. Although the aftermath was just absolutely atrocious, at least the build-up and the match itself were excellent in and of themselves. So that closed out Unforgiven 2001. Dare I say, the best Unforgiven up to this point. I mean, 98, 99, and 2000. I mean, I've noticed from watching these pay-per-views, or at least in my opinion, they've been gradually getting better and better. 98 was a very throwaway show. 99 was pretty good. 2000 was very good. I would call this show great. Of course, it was not without its flaws. The WCW tag team title match was fucking horrible. Perry Saturn and Raven and then Rhino and Tajiri were not bad. They were just kind of there, but they didn't take away from the show. The only match that really took away from the show was the WCW tag team title match. So that was a complete waste of fucking time. Everything else that was really good. Jericho and RVD, an excellent match. The handicapped WCW title match was good. I thought it was entertaining. Nothing you must see, but it was pretty entertaining. And the main event was phenomenal. I thoroughly enjoyed that as well, and a good tag team title match to kick off the show, and a good match from Edge and Christian, so you can't really complain. Not an amazing show, but I would call it great. I would certainly call it great, one of the better pay-per-views from the Alliance era. So while the storyline of the invasion angle was complete shit and the way it was booked and the people they brought in and whatnot, at least the in-ring action was still top tier. It was still very, very good, and this event was a prime example of that in my personal opinion. So definitely check out this pay-per-view, Unforgiven 2001, on the WWE Network. I'll be back on... This is going up on Tuesday, so I'll be back on Saturday and Sunday with my reviews of Unforgiven 2002 and 03, respectively. But in the meantime and in between time, you guys can catch me on Twitter at WrestleRant. Be sure to follow me there and like the Facebook page. Give the page an old thumbs up at facebook.com/grim.gsm.matthews. Visit the website at nextairwrestling.net. And be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is greatly appreciated. Enjoy the rest of your week, guys. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch you guys down the road.